Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the watch, warning, and advisory map, we've got a winter storm warning out for St. Lawrence Island up to Diomede, and also here the western portion of the Seward Peninsula. That's for blizzard conditions expected to develop at 9 p.m. this evening and continuing through 9 p.m. Monday evening. So about 24 hours worth of a blizzard type condition expected there. Coming up here this evening. And from there we'll look at yesterday's satellite imagery, and you can see southeast coast here is in a wet weather pattern, and they're going to stay that way. Had one system rolling through yesterday with some rain, and the clouds gathering here from the next system, the upper center, back through here, and those two areas combined and wrapped up into a pretty vivid spiral here off the coast, far enough off the coast that the strongest winds remained west of the mainland areas there. Gale force winds, possible area of storm force winds in here the way that thing's wound up, but a lot of rain, or kind of a wet day, not a lot of rain, but anywhere from a ½ inch over the southern panhandle to say about 2/10 up to the north. Juneau picking up 0.19 inches in the last 24 hours. And this rolling through the front here, so it may change over to a more showery condition. Otherwise, we have this cold front back through here, big low pressure area out over the northwest Bering Sea, and that pushing in several bands of moisture. First front right through here, really breaking up. It did bring some areas of snow into the Susitna Valley during the day today. A little more extensive back to the northwest of the Arctic coast, and gusty winds gusting 40-45 miles an hour there through the Bering Strait, with snow and blowing snow, and snow all the way at least to Barrow, with some flurries over at Kaktovik there, a little drier in through this area. And the Bering Sea kind of snow showers. We have another band right through here that came on shore, another one there right across Nunivak Island, and then the remains of a front right through here. You can see it's really broken up. And then another one right back to the west there with another low center, west-northwest of Shimia. And on the chart, here's a storm off the panhandle, rain and some breezy conditions there with the strongest winds off the coast. Weak low here south of the Kenai Peninsula with some showers occurring in that area. And then this front that pushed up to the Alaska Range, and there was kind of a continuous snowfall going there in the western slopes. McGrath and the Kuskokwim Valley, they picked up anywhere from 1 to 2 inches of snow, 14 on the ground this afternoon. And then again, the light snow back to the north and west with the gusty winds. And again, those winds expected to increase for the blizzard conditions here, St. Lawrence Island and on up in across the Bering Strait areas. So moving on to the forecast for tonight, that front really weakens, just that trailing edge down into the possibly the western Susitna Valley, keeping a few flurries in and some clouds. Otherwise, not much expected here anywhere to the east. Dry Copper River Basin. Much of the eastern interior remains dry and variably cloudy. Excuse me, it stays wet here over the southeast coast, the main front having pushed through, and then surges of moisture rotating around that low that's hanging back off the north coast there. And snow levels on the low side, but not quite down to sea level, especially with that continued southwest wind flow off the open ocean there. But definitely not, it could be in the form of snow, whatever falls here up Lynn Canal and the Klondike Highway, especially towards Skagway. Showers possibly of snow or mixed with snow all around Kodiak Island back to the Alaska Peninsula. High pressure, cold temperatures again. Could drop anywhere from 10 to 20 below. The lower Yukon Valley had readings down to about, in some areas, down 10 to 15 below this morning, even with the southwest wind flow and the variable clouds that were in the area there. And then snow and blowing snow here, of course, for tonight, where the blizzard warning starts up in combination with this low as it slides northwards. It's going to increase the gradient again and bring those stronger winds gusting over 50 miles an hour in towards St. Lawrence Island. And you can see a trough extending all the way back to the Aleutians. And then the northern edge of a big system down to the south there, that's going to start to increase those easterly winds and should bring us up to gale force for the southern portions of the central and western or eastern Aleutians by tomorrow. And you can see the gradient tightening up here, although the main moisture producing area of that system is going to stay well to the south. Just some areas of possible light precipitation and clouds to the north of that. And then back to the west here, areas of snow possible over south central Alaska, kind of a trough lifting into the area there. So rain or snow showers along the coast, areas of snow, light snow possible over the Kenai Peninsula, and then that scattering out to a few snow showers along the Alaska Range, but pretty nice, dry and cold here over the interior and the north, all the way to the Arctic coast, back down to the west, and then continued gusty winds here through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, right up to maybe clipping there the Point Hope, Cape Lisburne area, snow showers out over the Bering Sea, and kind of maybe tapering off on the rain here for the Panhandle. There's the next system rolling on up, and it looks like that ought to be in probably by, well, definitely overnight, Monday night, rain back into the area there, and that continues. You can see that system weakens into a trough here, but doesn't weaken enough to make it, probably to keep the winds not as strong, but enough gradient, windy, wet conditions across the Panhandle, and that'll probably last through Wednesday night and into Thursday, because of this next system will be rolling right in behind it. Then it could become a little more showery Thursday afternoon, and the rainfall a little less heavy, but then it looks like Thursday night and Friday another system will be following that one in. So you're in a pretty wet week coming up here, and that could last right into the following weekend. Otherwise, we have some moisture here that's over south central Alaska tomorrow. That's going to be developing and moving northward, and that could bring anywhere from 1 to 2 or maybe as much as 4 inches of snow into the Koyukuk Valley there in and around the greater Battles area, with snow spreading up excuse me, across the central Brooks Range and back to the west and also off to the east. Arctic coast may stay dry, but look for those easterly winds to increase with the lower pressure developing here down to the south. Kind of a 20 to 25 knot wind there across the central and eastern coast. Lighter back here to the west, becoming variable over the Chukchi Sea, and still some lingering snow, but losing the wind here for the Bering Strait, and not too bad for St. Lawrence Island. Better, you'll be out of the blizzard warning anyway, and probably even any kind of winter weather advisories. Easterly flow here, offshore flow, keeping it dry, and good VFR even out along the coastline for Bristol Bay. But that easterly flow, upper level ridging coming in over southern Alaska following this system as it lifts northward. So a pretty good day here across southern Alaska on up into the Tanana Valley, Copper River Basin for Tuesday, but on the south side of that, the easterly flow on the north side of this low with this ridge pulling northward. That's probably going to drive some clouds and moisture into the east side of Kodiak Island. And of course, southerly flow, wet as I mentioned for the Panhandle. And this front, windy and wet, periods of rain from possibly as far east as Cape Sarachev, but definitely the eastern Aleutians on Alaska, all the way out to Kamchatka Island. And temperatures today in the upper 30s to mid 40s across the southeast coast there, with 41 Middleton Island, below freezing as you go inland, Valdez at 28, and let's see, 18 at Gulkana, 32 Talkeetna, same thing in Kenai with a 39 down at Homer. Mid to upper 30s across Kodiak Island. Up in the interior, temperatures above 0 through the Tanana Valley, one of the cooler locations. Fairbanks at 3. 3 also at Fort Yukon, with Eagle at -7, -9 Arctic Village. Same temperature there up at Kaktovik. And Nuiqsut and Barrow, -8, -4 there at Wainwright. 9 at Point Lay, 10 at Cape Lisburne, 1 degree at Shishmaref, and that looks like a -5 there at Kotzebue, and then 5 above over at Deering on the other side, 12 at Nome, and temperatures either side of 0 here through the Yukon Valley, all the way down, then out along the coast into the lower 20s. On down to the southwest, Cape Newnham at 17, King Salmon 25, mid to upper 20s for the peninsula, lower 30s for the western peninsula, 32 there at Unalaska, as well as St. George, St. Paul just edging above the frost point with mid to upper 30s here for the Aleutians, but shimmy in the colder air at 31. Lows for tonight, below 0 here, as cold as possibly 20 below, with the coldest areas in the purple shading here. That could be down near 20 below 0, and the north slope, and staying in the teens, or dropping into the teens here for the Susitna Valley, on down into the Kenai Peninsula, warmer along the coast. And highs tomorrow kind of on the cool side here in the north central interior, but mid to upper 20s. Forecast for southern Alaska or south central Alaska, and staying mild over the Panhandle, and 30s again to near 40 for the Aleutians. Flying weather IFR shifting northward into the northern southeast coast, and marginal VFR elsewhere. Kind of hit and miss here along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and then IFR up west of Cook Inlet to the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, and scattering out through here. Pretty good VFR though for much of the interior. Arctic coast as usual, always threatened by some kind of marginal IFR type of condition there, down through the warning area, and then marginal VFR over areas of the Bering Sea. Anaktuvik, marginal becoming VFR, and either approach tomorrow. Adigan, probably the same pattern. Could start out maybe marginal, but it will become VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, gradual improving trend from IFR to marginal. Same forecast for rainy, windy, VFR. Isabel, VFR, and Mentasta. All 3 passes VFR, as well as Tanita. Portage could start out marginal, not too bad, they'll be coming VFR. Chilkoot and White, IFR. For the freezing levels, again, surface here up into the central Bering Sea, then dropping back. This for late tonight, early tomorrow morning, hugging the coastline all the way around, 2,000 feet up right along the southeast coast. Icing tomorrow between freezing level 9,000 feet here over the Panhandle, and another batch here back to the west a little bit with the moisture along the Alaska Range down across Kodiak Island, and then the snow area through here. Could be some icing below 4,000 feet. Otherwise, this area staying well to the south of the Aleutians. Looking at the winds aloft, kind of an upper trough here from south central Alaska down off the Panhandle. So southwest flow of that's going to keep it wet, and then the next one will be rolling on up later on. And southwest flow here with this upper level system, blizzard warnings there for the Bering Strait and St. Lawrence Island through tomorrow. And at 9,000 feet, kind of a complex pattern out here along the coast and up into the northern Bering Sea. Southeasterlies 15 to 25 knots. Could get as high as 35 knots here along the Seward Peninsula, possibly in toward Kotzebue Sound, but dropping back, especially to the east, closer to the high, lighter winds. Southeast 20, strongest winds off to the southwest. And 60 knots there, coming up to just near or south of central Aleutians. 3,000 foot winds, much the same pattern, southeast winds, but only 10 to 20 off the Panhandle there, and lighter inland under the ridge, maybe up to 25 knots, but nothing too terribly heavy at all. Strongest here over the Seward Peninsula and across Kotzebue Sound, western Arctic coast, but really not all that strong. And then 40 to 50 knot winds, that's where the strongest winds are, coming up to just south of the Aleutians. And with that turbulence, moderate chop below 6 to 8,000 feet from St. Nikolsky out across Adak and southward, and then those southerly winds here, maybe some moderate chop there on the north side of the Seward Peninsula, Shishmaref on over to Tin City, Diomede, and then Cape Lisburne and Point Hope could get a little bumpy. And then the southern southeast coast might see some isolated moderate chop as well. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
You know, the real tragedy of practically every boating-related drowning is that it could have been easily prevented. Wearing a personal flotation device, a PFD, is by far the single most important safety measure you can take when boating. It's a point we've been stressing for years and one that simply cannot be overemphasized. Look at it this way. Virtually every single boating-related drowning could be eliminated if the victim had been wearing a PFD. It's a time of the year when most boats have long since been hauled out of the water. But for more than 2 million waterfowlers in North America, it's the start of their boating season. Some may use a duck boat to head out to a water blind. For others, their boat may be nothing more than a dinghy used to set out decoys. In either case, these boaters operate in one of the most hostile boating environments of all, near freezing water. Roy LeGrand, recently married, had not had the chance to hunt much during the season, but he and his Labrador Retriever Skeeter knew this point on the river could be a real hotspot in the right conditions. And as the wind picked up, the birds began to move and come in from the bay. Now, it looked to be the kind of day every hunter hopes for. One last duck to fill his limit. And one last retrieve for an already tired young dog. According to what LeGrand later told us, a stiffening breeze and a strong outgoing tide pushed this duck beyond the dog's reach. LeGrand said he knew his dog wouldn't give up on the retrieve and soon would be exhausted and in danger of drowning. A crisis, and LeGrand knew he had to help. An 8-foot dinghy in a high wind and choppy water. Hardly the right rescue craft for this kind of operation. And LeGrand faced the challenge of hauling a struggling 50-pound lab on board a small and unstable platform. A young, fit man and a strong swimmer, LeGrand nevertheless later admitted that he thought he and Skeeter would never make it back to shore. Nothing can prepare you for the incredible and instantaneous shock to your system when you're suddenly plunged into near-freezing water. Your first reaction is an involuntary gasp, a torso reflex that can prove deadly if your head is under the water. Your heart and circulatory system undergo a tremendous strain, sometimes resulting in cardiac arrest. Consider that a man, even without clothing, if he stays active, can survive on land at 32 degrees Fahrenheit for as long as 24 hours. But cold water conducts the heat from your body some 25 times faster. Your survival time in near-freezing water is literally a matter of minutes. In fact, drowning is often not the cause of death of many victims who fall into cold water. The killer? Hypothermia, the rapid and drastic chilling of the body core. After getting back into his boat, Roy LeGrand was able to paddle back to the dock. His friend said it must have been his lucky day. But the reasons he came back alive had very little to do with luck. First of all, he was properly dressed for the cold. But the single most important thing he was wearing was a flotation jacket, a PFD, something like this one. By keeping him afloat, he was able to expand all of his rapidly diminishing energy into getting back to his boat and getting out of the water. Wearing a PFD is critically important when boating in cold water, even if you're an Olympic-class swimmer. If you fall in without a PFD, it'll be next to impossible to get one on while in the water. In fact, should you capsize or fall overboard in cold water, your every effort should be directed toward just one goal: getting out of the water as quickly as possible. It's a rule Roy LeGrand didn't forget, and it saved his life. Never forget that water assumes an entirely different character as its temperature drops. From an element that is pleasant and refreshing during the summer, it becomes, as it gets cold, one of the most hostile environments known to man. You know, as I look at the accident reports from around the country, it's frightening to note just how many took place in circumstances where there was no obvious danger. A fisherman casting on a quiet lake, a duck hunter setting out his decoys just a few yards from his blind. The fact is, the vast majority of boating accidents happen without warning, at times when they're least expected. Far too many people who use boats as part of their outdoor recreation simply don't realize how easy it is to get into serious trouble, to actually find themselves in life or death situations. If you don't think so, consider that more outdoorsmen die from drowning or cold water exposure than for any other reason. And in the younger age groups, drowning is the second leading cause of accidental death in the country. So if your outdoor sport involves boats, please take this advice to heart. Take the time to learn basic boat handling skills. Courses are available through your state or provincial agencies, as well as a number of private boating organizations. If you drink, you must understand that alcohol greatly increases your chances of having an accident. If you go out when the water is cold, be prepared and know what to do in case of an emergency. If you can't swim, take a course from your local YMCA or the Red Cross. But no one should ever be embarrassed to wear a PFD. It is by far your best defense against drowning. A few preventative measures, some basic safety rules, and some common sense. Nothing complicated, but it can go a long way towards saving your life.
Welcome back. We've got southwest winds, 10 to 20 knots, strongest on the south coast, more southerly over the southern inside waters, and then south to southeast and lighter as you go north, lighter and then becoming east to 10 up here on the north coast. A little different situation for Tuesday with south winds up to 30 knots. In fact, small craft advisories here, well, all the way the entire stretch of the coastline due to the seas, but northeast about 20 up on the north coast. Southeasterlies 20 to as high as 25 knots in the southern inside waters, and then kind of a southerly breeze there at about 15 for Lynn Canal. For the Prince William Sound zone, northeast, light winds. Same thing for Cook Inlet, a little more northerly here and up to 15 across Camashack Bay. Switch around to southeast for the Barren Islands and the western North Gulf Coast. South 10, Kodiak Island on the east side, light northwesterlies across Shelikof Strait. And for Tuesday, small craft advisories here for Kodiak Island from 25 knots, Shelikof Strait, northeast 30 there on the eastern zones, falling back considerably down to 15 knots on the North Gulf Coast, northerlies at 10, Prince William Sound, and south of the Forelands, Cook Inlet, northeast 20. Bristol Bay, light northeasterlies tomorrow, southeast becoming southeast, 15 to as high as 20 knots with an increase thereafter, northeast, southwest of Kodiak Island. And then Tuesday, possibly storm force northeasterlies here on the southern side of the peninsula. Small craft advisories on the north side, even Bristol Bay east at 35 knots and 45 knot winds there southwest of Sitkinak. For the Aleutians, northeast to 20 out over the western areas, east 15 between the Adak area and Shimia with 25 to 35 knot winds, strongest here on the southern part of the peninsula. So gales showing up here from the east-southeast and then dropping back to small craft there south of the Fox Islands. And then for Tuesday, those stronger winds working in here on the southern portions of the eastern Aleutians there. 45 knots with small craft advisories, 25 to 30 knots here right out of the east. Northeast 35 all the way out to Shimia from about well west of Adak. And out in the southwest coast, pretty light winds tomorrow from a southerly direction south of Nunivak Island. The Pribilof south at about 20 And southeast 25 there, small craft advisories along the southwest coast north of Nunivak Island, and southeast 30 there where the blizzard warning is out for St. Lawrence Island, northeast 25 for the northern Bering Sea. And then for Tuesday, those winds really coming down here for St. Lawrence Island, 15 knots out of the northeast, and then a gradual increase as you go down the coastline with 20 knot winds north of Nunivak Island, 25 knot winds. Good for small craft advisories there from Kuskokwim Bay all the way out, taking a turn to the east there across the Pribilofs. And up along the Arctic coast, easterlies, 10 knots on the east side, central coast 15 knots, picking up to 20 knots here down toward Point Lay, and then pretty brisk there, but under gale force for the western areas all the way down to Kotzebue Sound. And then the outlook for Tuesday, light variable winds here setting up 5 to 10 knots, and northwesterlies, kind of a weak circulation right here, so back to the west there, northeasterlies turning east on the central coast all the way up to brisk wind advisories toward Kaktovik. And for tonight, staying wet over the panhandle, maybe a little more showery, but this low spinning here, as those showers come in, interact with the terrain, it'll be just like a general precipitation, rainfall or snow at the higher elevations. Cold high pressure here over the western interior, temperatures below zero anywhere it clears out with the light winds, and then a weak persistent area of flurries here with that what's left of that front, which is just about nothing. And then the blizzard warning, St. Lawrence Island up into the Bering Strait and Diomede Island, and some snow conditions back down toward the Pribilofs, but nothing heavy at all. And for tomorrow, an increase in the winds to gales here just south of the Aleutians in those marine zones. Areas of snow up through the north, and the blizzard warning supposed to be out through tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Arctic Wire Rope and Supply, an Alaskan company providing lifting and rigging products since 1983. Manufacturing custom wire rope, chains, and nylon slings here in Anchorage. On the web at arcticwirerope.com.
The National Weather Service.